Courtrooms are usually places where legal disputes are resolved and justice is served. It is a place that determines a victim or criminal's fate. However, there are times when intentions take an unexpected turn, and inmates find themselves in the spotlight of a fight or brutal killings in a courtroom. Join us as we explore the stories of 10 convicts who were killed in the courtroom. Number 10, David Paradiso. Eileen Pettit was a beautiful blonde girl who had a romantic relationship with David Paradiso that only lasted for a few weeks. But their short time together raised a lot of questions about love and misunderstandings between couples. This tragedy happened one evening when Eileen, her boyfriend David Paradiso, and his mother Deborah Paradiso were driving around with Deborah behind the wheel. David and Eileen got into a serious argument, and David ended up stabbing his 20-year-old girlfriend Eileen in the neck. Then he forced his mother to drive towards the woods, where he threw Eileen's lifeless body on the side of the road. After David was caught, he went through several trials. During questioning in one of the trials, he kept saying he killed Eileen because she deserved to die. This was a change from his previous statements. Then he decided to face the judge's corner and attack the judge with a weapon. An officer had to shoot David 5 times to stop him. Deborah Paradiso said their family had been trying to alert authorities that David Paradiso was acting mentally unstable, but officials would not listen. David's family sued the court over his death, stating he had some mental issues and another measure should have been used instead of shooting to save the judge. But their case was dismissed because the action taken by the officer was the right action he was trained to take in situations like that. Some people think David wanted to be shot, which is why he attacked the judge. Do you think his family was wrong to sue over his death? Number 9, Brian Nichols. Brian Nichols was a man whose life took a tragic turn despite his early promise and efforts. He was born into a humble family but worked hard to pursue an education. He graduated from high school and went on to attend college while playing football. However, Nichols ran into legal troubles during his college years. He was arrested multiple times for offenses like assault, harassment, and trespassing, though some charges were eventually dropped. After a brief stint at another college, Nichols moved to Georgia. In Georgia, Nichols found success working as a computer engineer and earning a 6-figure income. He regularly attended church and seemed to have his life on track. However, his world unraveled when he was charged with brutally assaulting and raping his former girlfriend of 8 years after learning she was dating someone from their church. During his retrial for the rape case, Nichols made a shocking move. He attacked a deputy, stole her gun, and went on a shooting rampage. He killed a judge, a court reporter, and another deputy. Nichols then hijacked vehicles and evaded capture for 60 hours before finally surrendering to authorities. After a lengthy trial, the jury deliberated for 12 hours over 2 days before finding Nichols guilty on all 54 counts. The judge sternly warned the courtroom about emotional outbursts, highlighting the gravity of the case. Despite this, some spectators burst into tears upon hearing the verdicts. In the end, Nichols was sentenced to multiple life sentences with no chance of parole, plus hundreds of additional years in prison for his numerous charges. His life, which once showed promise, took a tragic and violent turn, leaving a trail of devastation in its wake. Number 8, Slobodan Praljak. Slobodan Praljak was a controversial figure born in 1945 in Capljina, Yugoslavia, now Bosnia and Herzegovina. He had a diverse educational background with qualifications in engineering, philosophy, sociology, and drama. This showcased his intellectual abilities across different fields. Praljak worked in various roles throughout his career. He was a professor, theater director, TV film producer, documentarian, and also a successful business owner of a large electronics store. His diverse experiences highlighted his multifaceted talents. In 1991, during the Yugoslav Wars, Praljak joined the Croatian army and quickly rose to the rank of Major General. However, during this time, he was involved in committing war crimes. He failed to prevent the murder of Muslims in Prozor and the destruction of historic sites. Eventually, Praljak was tried and sentenced to prison for his actions during the war. At his trial, His demeanor fluctuated between composure and raw emotion, reflecting the weight of his alleged crimes. In a dramatic and tragic act, Praljak ingested poison in the courtroom upon hearing the verdict, leading to his death before reaching the hospital. This defiant act left unanswered questions about his motives, whether it was an expression of remorse, an attempt to reclaim agency, or a defiance against the justice system. Praljak's life exemplified the complexities of pursuing justice in the aftermath of conflict. He was marked by both brilliance and brutality. His name is etched in history not only as a war criminal, but also as a figure whose actions challenged the very essence of justice. Number 7. Claus Grabowski. A shocking and heartbreaking story unfolded in Germany, involving a mother's quest for justice after the brutal murder of her young daughter. A German woman named Marin took matters into her own hands and shot and killed Claus Grabowski, the man who raped and murdered her 7-year-old daughter Anna in 1981. Marin's life was marked by trauma and hardship from an early age. She grew up in poverty, and her mother abandoned her when she was just a teenager, leaving her to fend for herself. Despite the challenges, Marin became a mother herself at a young age. She had 3 children, but due to financial difficulties, she had to give up her first 2 children for adoption. However, she kept her 3rd child, Anna, determined to provide for her. To support herself and Anna, Marin worked in a local bar where she shared a neighborhood with Claus Grabowski, a man who would become her daughter's killer. Grabowski was a known child predator in the community, having previously received a probation sentence in 1973 for strangling a 6-year-old girl. Just a couple of years later, he sexually molested 2 9-year-old children, showcasing his disturbing pattern of behavior. On the morning of May 5, 1980, Anna argued with her mother and decided to skip school to visit a friend. Tragically, she was lured into Grabowski's apartment under the false pretense of playing with his cats. Grabowski, a 35-year-old butcher, sexually assaulted Anna for several hours before strangling her with a pair of his fiancé's tights. He then tied her body up using skills he had learned in his profession and buried her in a shallow grave near a local canal. When Grabowski's fiancée returned home and learned of the horrific crime, she immediately contacted the police. Investigators discovered Anna's remains and arrested Grabowski for her abduction, rape, and murder. During the trial, Grabowski made the outrageous claim that 7-year-old Anna had attempted to seduce him and that he had killed her because she had threatened to tell her mother about the attack unless he gave her money. Marin was understandably outraged by Grabowski's allegations regarding her daughter. In a moment of anguish and desperation, she took the law into her own hands and shot Grabowski 8 times, leading to his instant death. Marin was convicted of manslaughter and unlawful possession of a firearm and sentenced to 6 years in prison. However, she was released on bail after serving 3 years. Marin later moved abroad, but returned to Germany to serve the remainder of her sentence after being diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. She passed away at the age of 46 and was buried next to her beloved daughter Anna in the Bergtor Cemetery in Lübeck. This tragic story serves as a powerful reminder of the depths of a mother's love and the lengths she may go to protect her child even after their untimely death. While Marin's actions were undoubtedly illegal, her motivation stemmed from a place of profound grief and a desire for justice in the face of an unimaginable tragedy. Number 6. Jonathan Schmitz. Have you ever watched the Jenny Jones TV show? Back in the 90s, there was a talk show called The Jenny Jones Show. In one episode, a 24-year-old guy named Jonathan Schmitz was invited as a guest. The reason he was invited was that someone claimed to have a huge crush on him and wanted to publicly tell him on the show. Like most people would react, Schmitz blushed and was really excited to find out who his secret admirer was. He probably assumed it was some woman who had a crush on him. But when the big reveal happened, it turned out to be a man named Amador Scott, who said he was Schmitz's secret admirer. That must have been a huge shock for Schmitz. Even though it was an awkward situation, Schmitz handled it pretty calmly. He told Scott that he was straight, but flattered by the revelation. It seemed like no big deal at the time. However, 3 days after taping that episode, things took a really dark turn. Scott left a sexually suggestive note on Schmitz's apartment door. This must have really upset or angered Schmitz. In response to the note, Schmitz went out and purchased a 12-gauge shotgun. He then went over to Scott's home, confronted him, and fired 2 shots right into Scott's chest, killing him. After doing that, Schmitz called 911 to confess to the murder. Schmitz was arrested and charged with 2 very serious crimes: first-degree murder and committing a felony with a firearm. For the first-degree murder charge, prosecutors had to prove that Schmitz planned and premeditated the murder ahead of time. If convicted of first-degree murder, Schmitz could have faced life imprisonment without any possibility of parole. However, the jury was allowed to consider lesser charges like second-degree murder or manslaughter if they didn't think it was premeditated. In the end, Schmitz received a prison sentence of 25 to 50 years, which he is still serving today. So while he didn't get life, it's still an extremely long sentence. After this incident, Jenny Jones herself insisted that the show, which never actually aired the Schmitz episode, had absolutely no connection to the shooting and murder. Her claim was that Schmitz was told ahead of time that his admirer could be either male or female. However, Schmitz's defense lawyers argued that the show's producers deliberately misled Schmitz into thinking his secret admirer was going to be a woman. Regardless of who was at fault, this shocking act of violence led to the Jenny Jones Show being canceled for good in 2003 after being on the air for over a decade. Number 5. Michael Marin. Michael Marin was an American financier, lawyer, and former Wall Street trader who was once a millionaire. In 2009, Marin was found guilty of intentionally setting fire to his large house in Arizona. His goal was to fraudulently obtain money from his insurance company. Marin's case gained a lot of attention because it was very unusual. People were shocked that a wealthy person would commit arson for insurance money. In 2012, during the court proceedings, something crazy happened. Marin ingested a poisonous substance, believed to be cyanide, right there in the courtroom. Despite doctors trying to save him, Marin could not be saved and died in the courtroom. His sudden death by poisoning added even more mystery and puzzlement to the already strange case. People could not understand why he would take such an extreme action. Marin's bizarre and unexpected death in the courtroom has continued to captivate public interest. It remains a topic of discussion for those who followed the trial. The case serves as a reminder that individuals can sometimes engage in actions that are difficult to comprehend, even in high-profile legal cases involving wealthy people. Marin's story is memorable because of its strange and tragic ending. A millionaire financier committing arson for insurance money is already unusual, but then taking his own life by poisoning in the courtroom after being convicted is just unbelievable. It's the kind of thing you'd expect to see in a movie, not real life. Number 4. William Streier. Wow, we've seen some crazy murder cases in courtrooms before, but this one is really something else. A 66-year-old man named William Streier, who had never been in trouble with the law before, decided to take matters into his own hands and get revenge outside the courtroom. In 2003, Streier shot a lawyer named Gerald Curry 5 times, in the neck, arms, and shoulder. Apparently, the two of them had some kind of dispute going on. A TV cameraman who was there to cover the murder trial of actor Robert Blake ended up capturing the whole thing on camera. You can see Streier firing away with 2 guns while Curry tries to dodge the bullets and hide behind a skinny little tree. After he was done shooting, Streier just calmly put his guns in his pockets and walked away, saying, "That's what you get for taking my money." Wild, right? He ended up getting sentenced to life in prison, plus an extra 25 years on top of that. No one really knows what the dispute between Streier and Curry was about exactly. But a lot of people think the sentence was way too harsh, especially for a 66-year-old man with no criminal history before this. It's just a crazy story all around. Number 3. Siale Angelou. Siale Angelou, a member of the Tongan criminal gang, became a headline figure due to a dramatic courtroom incident that unfolded in 2014. Standing trial in a federal courthouse in Salt Lake City, Utah, Angelao's trial took a shocking turn. In a desperate bid to assert dominance, or perhaps out of sheer desperation, Angelao seized a pen and lunged toward a witness. The courtroom erupted into chaos as Angelao's actions stunned everyone present. Swift action was taken by a U.S. Marshal on duty. Faced with the imminent threat to the safety of the witness and others in the courtroom, the marshal discharged their weapon, firing multiple rounds at Angelao. Tragically, Angelao sustained mortal injuries, and despite immediate medical attention, he succumbed to his wounds. The incident ignited a national discourse on courtroom security protocols and the appropriate use of force by law enforcement within judicial settings. Video footage of the event circulated widely, prompting both scrutiny and empathy for the difficult decisions made by officers tasked with maintaining order and safety during legal proceedings. Sile Angelo's case stands as a vivid and somber reminder of the unpredictable and potentially dangerous environments that can exist within courtrooms. It also underscores the immense responsibility borne by law enforcement officers to ensure the well-being of all participants in legal proceedings, even in the face of grave and immediate threats. The incident remains a pivotal moment in discussions surrounding courtroom security and the challenging decisions that law enforcement officials must sometimes make in the line of duty. Number 2, Perry Manley. Perry Manley was a man who got separated from his wife. He did not want to pay child support for his 3 children. His ex-wife reported him to the authorities. She kept hounding him to hand over his hard-earned cash to her. This made Manley very angry and obsessed for over 15 years. Manley filed no fewer than 5 lawsuits. He also joined groups that supported the rights of fathers who did not have custody of their kids but still had to pay child support. Manley claimed it was a form of involuntary servitude. He felt a man should not be forced to work to support a child he is not responsible for raising. Even with all his noise and actions, Manley kept getting more and more bitter by the day. One day, Manley dressed in camouflage clothing. He had a backpack strapped across his chest. He walked into a courthouse trying to avoid the metal detectors. But a security officer noticed a grenade in Manley's hand. The officer notified other officials right away. Security officers called the police. They spent more than 20 minutes trying to get Manley to surrender peacefully. Manley placed some papers he wanted to present to a judge on the floor. He used both hands to cup the grenade against his body. Then Manley made a sudden movement with the grenade. This led to 2 officers firing shots at him immediately. When an officer ran to Manley's body, they saw holes at the bottom. This meant the grenade was inactive and not a real threat. Manley also had no other weapons on him at all. What a sad and unnecessary way for his life to end. Number 1, Climi Fodo. On a fateful day, a 40-year-old Albanian man named Climi Fodo committed a horrific act of violence in an Italian courtroom. Despite the stringent security measures in place, including X-ray scanners and metal detectors, he managed to smuggle a firearm into the premises. The situation quickly escalated when Climi Fodo engaged in a heated argument with his estranged wife's relatives. Witnesses reported that the argument became increasingly violent, culminating in Climi Fodo opening fire. Tragically, he fatally shot his estranged wife and her uncle, leaving the courtroom in a state of chaos and panic. The shooting occurred around 11 a.m. local time, prompting an immediate response from emergency services. A fleet of ambulances rushed to the scene to attend to the casualties and provide medical assistance to those in need. However, Climi Fodo's rampage did not end there. After the initial shootings, he managed to flee the courtroom building. In a chilling turn of events, he encountered his wife's lawyer, Giovanna Fava, and opened fire, wounding her along with another lawyer and a guard. Ultimately, armed police officers intervened and engaged in a confrontation with Climi Fodo, resulting in his death. While the exact cause of the dispute remains unknown, the aftermath of this tragic incident will undoubtedly leave a lasting impact on the couple's 2 children, who will bear the emotional scars of this traumatic event for life. Which of these horrific events surprised you the most? Let me know in the comments below. If you'd like to watch more videos we've put together, click on one of them on the screen or check out the channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.